10 years ago, a young mother along with her two small children vanished on the way, leaving her husband's house in Kerrville, Texas completely disappeared without a trace, leaving her family shattered in despair. Authorities initially suspected this was a rare accident or the possible involvement of a third party, but no bodies were found, no vehicle was found, and there were only very few leads to pursue, causing the investigation to quickly stall. However, throughout those years, one investigator never gave up hope, always believing that somewhere in the old data there was a slim chance to crack the case. Then one day, while reviewing files and images that had once been considered meaningless, she noticed an extremely important detail that everyone had overlooked, a detail powerful enough to change the entire case and cause a shock in a way no one could imagine. Before diving into this full of surprises story, please let us know where you're watching from, and if you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe to support the channel. Some names and details in this story have been changed to ensure anonymity and privacy. Not all photos are from the actual scene. Kerrville, Texas, in late September 2011, had the exact tranquil appearance of the Texas hill country, low grassy hills, dry hot air, roads running through the small town where residents lived scattered and revolved around Highway 16, along with dirt branches like Harper Road leading northwest. Marianne Keller, 31 years old, worked part-time at a household goods store and lived with her two young children, Hallie, 7 years old, and Lucas, 4 years old, in a rented house near the center of Kerrville. After separating from her husband Robert Keller in early summer, Marianne and Robert maintained a joint custody arrangement. On weekends, she would go to Robert's house to pick up the two children to stay with her. On the afternoon of September 18, 2011, Marianne left work, drove her 1974 green Ford Maverick with a white roof to Robert's house. The child pickup proceeded as usual, with no noticeable signs of disruption or conflict. Near sunset, Robert stood at the door, watching the Maverick roll out of the driveway, merging onto Highway 16 in the direction back to Marianne's home. That was the last time he saw the mother and two children. A witness living near the intersection between Highway 16 and the dirt road leading northwest stated that at a time matching the time frame when Marianne left Robert's house, he saw a vehicle resembling the Maverick turn off the main road onto the dirt branch. From then on, no one saw the vehicle or the three of them appear anywhere around Kerrville. That night, Marianne did not return home. The phone was unreachable. Voicemail quickly filled up after numerous unanswered calls. The next morning, Hallie was absent from elementary school, and the homeroom teacher contacted Robert to check. This made Robert realize Marianne had not brought the children home as planned. Multiple attempts to contact Marianne failed, and no one in the family or friends knew where she was. By the late morning of September 19, Robert decided to report to the Kerr County Sheriff's Office that Marianne and the two children were missing. The Kerr County Sheriff's Office received the missing persons report from Robert Keller, and Sheriff Daniel Huxley personally took the initial information. This was not an ordinary missing persons report. The involvement of two children automatically placed the case under high-priority protocol, requiring law enforcement to open a file immediately, classify the risk level, and gather information in the shortest possible time frame. Huxley asked Robert to describe Marianne Keller in detail: age, height, build, hair color, last known clothing, any identifying features that could aid identification if witnesses appeared later. He continued recording information about the two children: Hallie, 7 years old, brown hair, introverted personality, often clinging to her mother; Lucas, 4 years old, smaller than average, slow speech but easily recognizable by a small birthmark on the left side of his neck. This data was entered into the file for cross-referencing if any reports emerged of strangers or unidentified children in the Kerr area or neighboring counties. Next, the sheriff requested a description of the vehicle: a 1974 green Ford Maverick with a faded white roof. The vehicle's old-fashioned exterior features, uncommon on Texas roads in 2011, were considered helpful for identification if the car appeared in a public area or was captured by residential cameras. Robert stated the vehicle had no tracking device, no modern security system, and its mechanical condition was sometimes erratic, potentially causing it to stop unexpectedly if overheated or driven continuously for long periods. This information was added to the file to build the possibility of mechanical failure or an unintended stop on the way home. Sheriff Huxley continued gathering data related to the intended route. As was her habit, Marianne always left Robert's house by merging onto Highway 16, then heading south through town to return to her rented home. However, the witness report of seeing the vehicle turn onto a dirt branch near the northwest intersection raised the possibility that it had not followed the usual route. Huxley noted every deviation from Marianne's typical travel pattern to assess whether this change stemmed from personal choice, traffic conditions, or some other unusual event. Part of the multi-person missing persons intake procedure involved verifying if the victim intended to stop anywhere before heading home. Huxley asked Robert about any plans or stops Marianne had mentioned, but Robert confirmed the child handoff conversation was brief and showed no indication Marianne planned to go elsewhere. To be certain, Huxley had Marianne's work schedule, shopping habits, and frequented weekend locations reviewed, but none indicated any plans for that evening. After completing descriptions of the victim's vehicle and route assessment, the sheriff proceeded to the most critical early-stage step, establishing a reasonable search radius based on 3 factors: the time elapsed from leaving Robert's house to the end of the day, the maximum distance the Maverick could travel under Hill Country's hilly road conditions, and the possibility of the vehicle stopping due to mechanical issues or personal choice. This formed the primary missing area, the segment of Highway 16 from the eastern edge of Kerrville extending to the northwest, turning branches where terrain became more complex. The dirt branches near Harper Road, leading to wide, sparsely populated areas, were flagged as high risk due to their remote nature and lack of lighting. Huxley set priorities. First, check along Highway 16 to confirm the vehicle did not break down on the main route. If nothing was found, the search would shift to the nearest side branches within the time and distance-determined radius. Upon completing the radius setup, the sheriff moved the file to ready status for initial field search, officially marking the starting point for verifying the missing status. Sheriff Daniel Huxley took Robert Keller's statement right at noon on September 19, 2011, to record verifiable information related to the last time Marianne and the 2 children were seen. Robert described in detail Marianne arriving to pick up Hallie and Lucas as usual. She arrived on time, showed no signs of stress or unusual mood change, and did not mention stopping anywhere else before heading home. He confirmed the mother and children left his house around late afternoon, when sunlight had begun to fade, and Marianne's familiar green Ford Maverick headed toward Highway 16, following her usual route. Huxley recorded the entire statement without comment, ensuring the collected data remained unaltered for later cross-referencing. After completing the statement intake, Huxley requested the single gas station along Marianne's travel axis to provide camera footage from the afternoon of September 18th. The old low-resolution camera system showed a green vehicle appearing at a time matching when Marianne could have passed by. Upon review, the vehicle shape in the video matched a 1974 Ford Maverick, though the license plate was unreadable. The footage showed the vehicle heading out of Kerrville toward the northwest, creating an independently confirmed timestamp beyond Robert's statement. Though it could not be definitively confirmed as Marianne's vehicle, Huxley saved this data as supporting evidence for reconstructing the journey. Next, the sheriff's office requested phone records from the carrier for Marianne's calls in the 24 hours before disappearance. The report showed only a few short calls related to work and contact with Robert to confirm pickup time. No unusual texts, no prolonged calls, and no signs she was in distress or planning to change her schedule. Calls near the disappearance time were brief and routine, suggesting no voluntary departure or contact with strangers. Incoming call logs also showed no unfamiliar numbers contacting Marianne at critical times. Huxley stored all data as raw information without yet analyzing cell tower location ranges. Evidence collection continued with inspection of Marianne's rented residence near central Kerrville. 2 deputies were sent to observe the house condition and file a report per protocol. The closet showed no packed suitcase, no large amounts of clothing missing, and no personal items typically taken for long travel were gone. ID documents, bank cards, notebook, administrative papers remained in their usual places. The refrigerator still held food for several days, consistent with her stable routine. No signs indicated Marianne prepared for a long trip or planned to leave Kerrville in any direction. A quick review of her bank transaction log also showed normal activity, no sudden withdrawals, no unusual transfers, and no hotel or travel bookings. This ruled out voluntary departure or planning to flee the area. After recording the statement, camera data, call history, and residence check report, Huxley created a raw data log including established elements, the last confirmed sighting time of Marianne, likely direction of travel, the match of the blurry gas station camera vehicle with the time she left Robert's house, routine call activity, and residence condition showing no signs of intentional departure. All this information was stored in original form, fulfilling the primary evidence collection phase function. Based on the blurry footage from the gas station and Robert's statement about when Marianne left his house, Sheriff Daniel Huxley began reconstructing the initial travel route to determine the area the Ford Maverick could have passed through before completely vanishing. Camera data showed the vehicle appearing in late afternoon under fading light, helping accurately estimate the time the vehicle left the populated area and merged onto the main town artery. From gathered information, Marianne almost certainly headed south on the Kerrville route and merged onto Highway 16, the road she always used when bringing the children home. From here, Huxley built 3 possible routes Marianne may have taken, based on habits, traffic conditions, and sunset time limits. The first route was the straight path along Highway 16 back to the rented home. This was the familiar route, with streetlights in some sections and not too difficult to drive even with an old vehicle. The second route included turning onto one of the dirt branches near the northwest intersection, leading to sparsely populated areas, consistent with the witness seeing a similar vehicle turn onto dirt. The third route was the possibility of deviation due to driving conditions, such as shifting to a low-hill road eastward if Marianne avoided heavy traffic or sought a short stop before dark. After identifying the 3 plausible routes, Huxley cross-referenced time to calculate the maximum range the Maverick could reach before full darkness. With average speed of an old vehicle and distance from Robert's house to town edges, Huxley estimated Marianne could have traveled 10 to 20 minutes before darkness fell, narrowing the radius accordingly. These time windows helped eliminate overly distant targets as they exceeded the vehicle's capability in remaining daylight. Combining the gas station camera timestamp, familiar route data, and witness statement, the highest probability area lay along Highway 16 from Kerrville's edge to the northwest dirt branches. To increase accuracy, Huxley marked characteristic hazardous areas of Texas Hill Country where a vehicle could fail: narrow uneven dirt roads, long gradual slopes, low light zones, sections obscured by brush or low rock outcrops, and completely unpopulated stretches. These were locations prone to vehicles leaving sight or getting stuck, and also least likely to have witnesses to unusual events. When mapping all information, Huxley noticed Harper Road and its connecting dirt paths led to many large parcels, including Harper Ranch, a prominent area on local maps due to its dense, rugged terrain and sparse signs of activity. Harper Ranch fell squarely within the reconstructed time and direction range and matched the sole witness seeing a matching vehicle divert from the main route. From these factors, Harper Ranch was flagged as a likely point on Marianne's path and became a priority in the list of areas for closer initial review. Right after completing the initial route reconstruction, Sheriff Daniel Huxley launched Level 1 search, focusing on the urban area and immediate outskirts where Marianne left Kerrville. The goal of this phase was to sweep the full 3 to 5 kilometer radius around the town edge, the area where the Ford Maverick had the highest likelihood of appearing before turning onto more remote branches. The search team included sheriff's deputies, local rescue personnel, and a group of volunteers familiar with Kerrville terrain. Area division began at the intersection of residential roads and Highway 16, then expanded east-west to cover the full possible path in the short time after leaving Robert's house. Team members were instructed to carefully check sections prone to skidding or veering off course. Many roads around Kerrville, though near residential areas, still featured Texas Hill Country traits: cracked rough pavement, deep rainy eroded ruts, tree roots protruding near edges, or narrow blind curves. Huxley directed a meter-by-meter check along shoulders, including low embankments, to ensure no signs of vehicles leaving the road were missed, such as skid marks, gouged dirt, or flattened grass. However, after hours of continuous sweeping, no traces matching a vehicle in distress were found. Parallel to shoulder checks, the team also swept urban parking lots, though the chance of the Maverick stopping there was rated low. Small lots next to convenience stores, local restaurants shared parking, and small shopping center lots were all inspected. Every old or matching color vehicle was approached and plate checked. None matched Marianne's vehicle description, and no locals reported any unusual vehicle on the evening of September 18. A key part of Level 1's sweep involved checking abandoned houses or unfinished structures near Kerrville, sometimes used as temporary storage or unauthorized parking. Several old homes on the town outskirts, vacant for years without utilities, were safely entered. Door conditions noted, fresh tire tracks sought, front yard soil observed for vehicle entry signs. All showed no signs of vehicle access on the night Marianne vanished. Similar structures near eastern commercial roads were also checked, but again, no notable finds. To strengthen the process, Huxley had the team sweep areas tens of meters off main roads where a vehicle could pause unnoticed. With mixed brush and low-grass terrain, the team moved slowly, looking for compressed soil or sudden stop tire marks. However, throughout the entire urban sweep area, no skid or spin marks appeared, no churned mud, and no brush broken in vehicle impact patterns. All this reinforced that if Marianne's vehicle had an issue, it was unlikely in the town or Level 1 vicinity. At the end of the 35-kilometer radius, search forces compiled the report. No vehicle found, no brake marks, no skid tracks, no dropped items on roads, and no residential witnesses noting unusual movement during Marianne's presumed passage. Kerrville Night Patrol teams also confirms no Maverick sighting on roads that evening of September 18. Level 1 search thus concluded without any leads. Gathered data only served exclusion. The vehicle did not fail in urban range, did not stop in populated areas, and did not leave the road in ways producing physical traces. This meant high likelihood the vehicle continued out of town and possibly entered less populated regions right after leaving Highway 16. Harper Ranch was added to the next priority list immediately after the urban search yielded nothing, as the area lay directly on the plausible travel path reconstructed from camera data and witness statement. It was a private parcel, hundreds of acres, largely abandoned after the former owner's family left Kerr County years earlier. The combination of large size, uneven terrain, and low oversight made Harper Ranch a zone capable of concealing traces of a vehicle or missing persons unnoticed. The search team was divided into 3 groups, each assigned a map section. Near the old entrance gate, the dilapidated barn deep inside the ranch, and the farthest northern part where terrain sloped steeper and vegetation thickened. Upon entering, teams immediately noted many terrain features of investigative value but also significant obstacles. Harper Ranch had numerous abandoned oil wells, some crudely capped with old materials, others exposing cracked concrete well mouths too deep for light to reach bottom. The depth and deteriorated state made inspection difficult without specialized gear to lower cameras or measure actual depth. This was noteworthy but unaddressable in Level 2 search relying only on direct observation. Additionally, scattered old barns were in severe disrepair, collapsed or off-hinged doors, wind-stripped tin roofs, sunken dirt floors from long disuse. Each barn was quickly safety-checked to rule out the vehicle being pushed inside or related evidence. However, no fresh vehicle movement signs, no tire impressions in dirt floors, and no disturbance indicating recent approach near the disappearance date. Some sunken soil areas were probed with long rods to check for compression from vehicle or heavy object weight. But Harper Ranch soil naturally sank after rain and showed long-term abandonment effects, yielding no anomalies attributable to the Maverick. Teams pushed deeper north, where terrain grew rougher with low rock outcrops and thick brush. This area could trap a small vehicle or cause loss of control, but due to lack of trails and steep grades, Marianne driving there was rated low probability. Still, the team walked every opening, seeking rock scratches, broken branches, or any vehicle passage signs. Results were inconclusive. No brush broken in vehicle force directions, no churned soil, and no physical signs confirming vehicle presence during disappearance timeframe. The team also checked near broken or old fences, as runaway vehicles sometimes crash through, but all damage appeared years old, not recent. By day's end, Huxley compiled reports from all 3 groups. No vehicle found, no bodies, no related evidence, and no signs the Maverick entered or left Harper Ranch near the disappearance date. Though the terrain offered many theoretical possibilities, lack of specialized equipment prevented deep well checks, forcing Level 2 search to temporarily conclude Harper Ranch provided no direct leads related to Marianne and the 2 children's disappearance. After completing sweeps of urban areas, Harper Ranch, and water bodies without leads, Sheriff Daniel Huxley expanded to Level 3 search, focusing on water bodies along and near Marianne's plausible travel route. In this area, Medina Lake stood out most due to its large size, great depth, and relative proximity to Highway 16, where the Ford Maverick could have passed before vanishing from witness view. Underwater search was deemed necessary because if the vehicle crashed into the lake, surface observation chances were low due to wide water and poor shore visibility. However, Kerr County's 2011 sonar equipment was outdated, low resolution, and limited in bottom object identification. When deployed, sonar produced large noise bands, especially over uneven lakebed areas with thick mud or natural structures like submerged trees. These noise bands generated numerous anomalies but could not specify whether objects were vehicles, rocks, or wood debris, complicating suspect zone narrowing. Huxley ordered multiple passes at different angles and frequency shifts to reduce noise, but images showed little improvement. Signal clusters appeared, then vanished without consistency to confirm a Maverick-sized object. Faced with this, Huxley deployed a dive team to directly check areas with the most stable sonar anomalies. The three-person dive team had experience in murky water, but approach faced many limits. Medina Lake water in early fall 2011 was quite turbid, underwater visibility only 1 to 2 meters. Divers moved slowly, relying on touch and small power lights to map bottom terrain. At sonar-marked points, they encountered only thick mud covering the lake bed, many sections with wood fragments or rocks mimicking large objects from afar. No metal signs, no vehicle frame shapes, and no objects showing accident traces. 2 further suspect points checked hours later yielded similar results. What sonar showed could not be visually verified. Submerged vegetation and years of sediment created countless natural shapes prone to misinterpretation. After dive team completion, they confirmed sonar signals appeared to be lakebed formations rather than man-made objects. Beyond Medina Lake, several small creeks and shallow water areas near Highway 16 were quickly checked by small boat. These had limited depth and easier riverbed visibility than the broad lake bottom, but no objects of matching size or traces of vehicle entry were found. Riverbanks showed no unusual erosion or broken soil structures that might indicate wheels sliding down from above road. Summarizing all sonar data, dive reports, and shallow water observations, results showed no evidence the Ford Maverick entered any water body during travel. Though ambiguous sonar signals existed, no area provided physical basis to extend underwater search. This led to temporary conclusion that water bodies around the likely route were not the disappearance site or related to Marianne and her children's vanishing. In the early days after urban, Harper Ranch and water searches yielded no results, the Kerr County Sheriff's Office began receiving a significant volume of public tips. This is common in family and child-involved missing cases when locals become vigilant and easily connect sightings to the circulating community news. However, most tips during this period lacked consistency, even contradicted each other, making verification time-consuming without clear investigative value. Among early tips, some claimed seeing a green vehicle speeding on a dirt road east of Kerrville, far from Marianne's logical direction. Others were certain they saw a young woman with 2 children in a small supermarket parking lot on the evening of September 18. These statements, cross-checked against Marianne's departure time from Roberts and gas station camera data, mismatched in time or location. Several other calls came to the sheriff's office hours after the missing alert spread through local community networks, reporting a family of 3 wandering near an old bus stop south of Kerrville. However, descriptions did not match Marianne or the children. Huxley directed every tip to be logged, categorized by credibility, and assigned to a small group for quick verification. The verification group recontacted each tipster for details: observation time, lighting conditions, distance, key identifying factors leading them to believe it was Marianne. Exchanges revealed most statements uncertain. Many admitted only a feeling of resemblance without confirmation. Numerous cases concluded as misidentifications of unrelated people. Other tips focused on the old Maverick. Some reported hearing an odd engine sound passing their farm, but not seeing the vehicle. Others recalled seeing a similar car parked near an old neighborhood weeks earlier, but detailed questioning showed observation times unrelated to the disappearance date. These were ruled out for time mismatch or lack of minimal verification. Huxley particularly noted a tip claiming a woman identical to Marianne was seen at a convenience store in nearby Bourne on the night of September 18. However, after verification contacted the store and reviewed security camera, no matching images appeared. The tipster later admitted the observation lasted seconds and may have been influenced by anxiety upon hearing the missing news. Another case involved the 2 children. Someone believed they saw a girl and boy resembling Hallie and Lucas standing near a small truck at a gas station on Highway 27, outskirts. But station camera data from that time showed no matching family features, and the reported truck had no connection to the case. These statements, though carefully reviewed, failed basic reliability criteria. Summarizing all tips over the first 3 days, Huxley recognized a common pattern: all mismatched in time or location, or lacked sufficient distinctive description for direct observation evidence. No statement met the last person to see standard for missing investigations, and none of the tipsters truly witnessed the Maverick moving at an investigative value time. This placed authorities in difficulty. Tip volume rose, but reliability fell. forcing resource expenditure on non-productive information verification. By the end of review, the file conclusion stated no direct eyewitness to the disappearance emerged, and community received statements provided no valuable investigative leads. After verifying all public statements without obtaining any valuable investigative information, Sheriff Daniel Huxley moved to a mandatory step in every missing persons case, reviewing the natural suspect pool, meaning individuals who had close contact with the victim in the short time before disappearance. 3 groups were examined: immediate family, neighbors or residents living near the travel route, and individuals who may have interacted with Marianne in the days leading up to the event. Each group was assessed on 3 criteria: opportunity for access, potential motive, and degree of match with collected facts. The first group reviewed was family, with Robert Keller as the only person physically present when Marianne picked up the 2 children. Huxley took a second statement to clarify minor details regarding attitude, timing, and circumstances of the afternoon of September 18. Robert continued to affirm that the interaction was normal, with no arguments or signs of conflict that could lead to impulsive behavior. To ensure objectivity, Huxley requested verification of Robert's alibi for the time after Marianne left his house. Investigators confirmed Robert was home that evening, with neighbors verifying they saw him in the backyard around 7 p.m., and no evidence indicated he left to follow Marianne's vehicle. Family records also showed no history of violence or serious disputes that could generate motive for harm, so Robert was marked as low probability on the natural suspect list. The second group consisted of neighbors and residents near areas Marianne may have passed through. Huxley ordered checks on individuals with criminal records or prior disturbances in Kerrville, but the list mainly included minor offenses and no cases with history related to assault, stalking, or violence against women or children. One man, living near the Northwest Dirt Branch who had appeared in old reports for theft, was examined more closely due to his home's proximity to the road where the witness said a similar vehicle turned. However, his alibi was confirmed through co-workers at his job site, showing he was on the night shift during Marianne's disappearance. A preliminary check of his home and personal vehicle found no abnormalities. The third natural suspect group included those with direct or indirect contact with Marianne through daily routines. In this group, the name requiring closest scrutiny was Pastor Gerald Whitford, a local church pastor who Marianne and her children occasionally attended community events with. Huxley requested a behavioral background check on Whitford to determine any prior incidents involving dangerous conduct or disputes with the victim. Local records noted Whitford as an active community member with no criminal history, and church events showed him always present on schedule. Nevertheless, per protocol, Whitford's alibi was still verified. When questioned, he stated that on the evening of September 18, he was at the church preparing content for the following Sunday service, with 2 congregation members confirming they met him there. Investigators recorded this statement and assessed alibi consistency, finding no contradictions in Whitford's description of his schedule. Beyond the 3 main suspect groups, Huxley also reviewed some less directly connected individuals who still qualified for consideration, such as Marianne's co-workers or regular customers at the store where she worked. None had interacted with Marianne on September 18th, and none had shown unusual interest or concerning behavior. Summarizing all review results, Huxley concluded that no one in the 3 natural suspect groups met sufficient elements to be considered a primary target. All alibis were verified by independent sources, no clear contradictory statements existed, and no physical evidence suggested contact between suspects and the vehicle or suspect areas. The file for this phase therefore recorded the conclusion: no incriminating evidence against any natural suspect. After temporarily ruling out natural suspects, Sheriff Daniel Huxley turned to analyzing Marianne Keller's phone data as one of the key technical steps to determine her final movements on September 18, 2011. The carrier-provided call log showed Marianne's last call before disappearing occurred in the afternoon, shortly before she arrived at Roberts to pick up Hallie and Lucas. The call lasted less than a minute and involved routine content, showing no stress or signs of trouble while traveling. Huxley noted this timestamp as a stable reference for cross-checking later events. More importantly, however, was the cell tower dataset recording the phone's relative location in the final minutes of the day. Positioning technology based on cell towers in 2011 in Kerr County was limited, mainly determining a wide radius around the nearest tower rather than precise coordinates. The data from the carrier showed Marianne's phone connecting to a tower north of Kerrville during the time matching her departure from Robert's house. However, this tower's coverage radius spanned several kilometers, encompassing populated areas, main roads, side branches, and many open lands. making it very difficult to narrow the actual path the phone traveled. When overlaying the tower coverage map with Marianne's possible routes, Huxley realized this information only confirmed she did not stray far from the Kerrville area shortly after leaving. But it did not clarify whether she continued south on the familiar route or turned northwest as the witness suggested. Even assuming the last signal appeared at the coverage edge, Marianne's phone could still be several kilometers from the actual location, a distance too great to serve as a basis for search zoning. Another difficulty with 2011 cell tower analysis was the lack of signal strength data or indicators showing whether the phone was moving or stationary. In other words, connection to a specific tower did not reveal if Marianne was driving, stopped somewhere, or simply experiencing automatic tower handoffs due to technical characteristics. When Huxley examined tower distribution in the area, he noted that even a few hundred meters of geographic shift could cause the phone to switch towers, especially on the low hill and thickly vegetated hill country. Thus, tower data could not build a detailed itinerary. Additionally, the carrier only retained minimal connection time information without minute-by-minute location logs, making timeline analysis more difficult. Attempts to reconstruct Marianne's route, based on average distances between coverage towers, yielded no practical value, as the area had low tower density and very wide coverage radii. Many segments Marianne may have traveled could lie at the edge of two coverage zones, adding ambiguity to identifying which tower accurately recorded the final signal. After comparing all cell tower data with the previously constructed timeline, Huxley had to conclude that phone data was insufficient to determine Marianne's actual location at disappearance. The phone only indicated she remained in the Kerrville area that afternoon, but could not confirm direction of travel, stopping points, or likely vehicle position. No specific coordinates, no valuable signal changes, and no phone data indicators helped narrow the search radius, making this analysis merely supportive of the timeline rather than generating new investigative directions. When phone data provided no new leads, Sheriff Daniel Huxley returned to analyzing possibilities directly related to Marianne's 1974 Ford Maverick, because in missing persons cases involving vehicles, evaluating scenarios related to the vehicle's movement or disappearance often significantly narrows search areas. Three main possibilities were proposed. The vehicle crashed and went off the road, the vehicle was concealed in a secluded or hard-to-access area, or the vehicle was deliberately pushed into water. For the first possibility, off-road crash, Huxley relied on Level 1 search data to determine if roads near Kerrville had features that could cause an accident without clear traces. The 35-kilometer radius sweep around where Marianne left the main road showed no churned soil, no skid marks, no broken brush, and no ruts or slopes structurally suited for a heavy vehicle leaving the roadway and plunging down. Roads around Kerrville, though rough, were narrow enough that loss of control would likely produce some evidence, like debris, brake marks, or scraped grass. Yet nothing similar was recorded. This rated accident likelihood low near urban areas. Huxley next considered the possibility of concealment in an obscured area, particularly at Harper Ranch, where Level 2 search had been conducted. This was a large parcel with complex terrain, featuring elements that could hide a vehicle, such as thick vegetation, sinking soil, low rock bases, and old barns. However, during direct inspection, the search team found no signs of vehicle entry, such as fresh tire tracks, compressed ground, flattened grass in wheel patterns, or disturbed soil. Barns were thoroughly checked and showed no new entry points or openings wide enough for a Maverick to enter or be pushed into. Sunken areas also yielded no anomalies. Depressions were natural and unrelated to heavy objects. Thus, the possibility of passive concealment in private land near Kerrville lacked supporting evidence. The third possibility, vehicle pushed into water, was assessed based on Level 3 search data. Medina Lake was the most suspect due to its depth and complex bottom, but 2011 sonar, despite much noise, provided no images matching vehicle frame or corresponding size. Dive teams approached suspect points and verified sonar signals as natural formations or large submerged wood under mud layers. Shallow waters, small creeks, and ditches along the route were checked, with no disturbed bottoms or submerged metal objects found. If the Maverick had entered water, auxiliary signs such as pre-plunged tire tracks, dragged soil in the direction of travel, or broken shoreline trees would typically appear, but these were entirely absent. Comparing all three possibilities with data from the three search levels, Huxley concluded there was no evidence the Ford Maverick crashed near Kerrville, was hidden at Harper Ranch, or fell into water within the checked areas. This made the vehicle a particularly unusual variable. It left no traces in any area it should have passed through, and this absence created a significant gap in the investigation process. The file recorded the temporary conclusion: the vehicle was not present in search areas, levels 1, 2, 3, and no physical signs proved the vehicle experienced an incident within surveyed boundaries. When analysis of the 3 Ford Maverick-related possibilities yielded no new directions, and all level 1, 2, and 3 search areas produced no results, Sheriff Daniel Huxley faced a rare but undeniable reality. After days of mobilizing personnel, equipment, and systematic sweeps, the investigation made no further progress in any direction. No traces indicated an accident, no signs of concealment, no evidence of water entry, and no direct witnesses saw the mother and children after leaving Robert's house. All collected data from blurry camera footage, imprecise phone signals, inconsistent statements, and vast traceless lands failed to create a strong enough foundation to expand investigation in a specific direction. In internal meetings, Huxley and the team reevaluated the entire file, scrutinizing every detail for possible oversights, but every procedural step had been correctly followed per 2011 Kerr County standards. The issue lay not in execution, but in objective data limitations: lack of traffic cameras, lack of witnesses, lack of precise positioning technology, and Texas Hill Country terrain too vast for reliable results from visual searches. After a period of continuous investigation without new leads, Huxley had to confront resource limits. Kerr County protocol stipulated that missing persons cases with no progress over a reasonable period, no clear criminal evidence, and no emerging risks would be transferred to cold case status. This did not mean the case was closed, but the status change reduced priority, ended active searching, and allowed reopening only with new leads or new technology. On the date Mary Ann Keller and her 2 children's file was officially moved to cold case, Huxley noted the investigative limits he and the team could not overcome due to 2011 technical conditions. In the summary report, he listed unaccomplished items: no high-resolution sonar to scan all of Medina Lake deeply and broadly, no GPR equipment to inspect deep oil wells and unstable soil layers at Harper Ranch, no sophisticated cell signal analysis tools to reconstruct movement with modern models, and no sufficient public or residential camera database to expand Maverick route tracing. These limitations kept many investigative steps at direct observation or theoretical exclusion rather than deep specialized technical analysis. In the file transfer record to archives, Huxley also stated the disappearance lacked any elements proving crime, yet showed no signs of voluntary departure. This undetermined status made the file one of Kerr County's most difficult to classify at the time. In subsequent years, the file was only rechecked upon new witness reports, most quickly dismissed for lack of credibility. No additional scene details emerged, no new physical evidence surfaced, and no signs indicated the Ford Maverick appeared elsewhere in Texas. The complete vanishing of both people and vehicle without any physical traces made Mary Ann Keller's case one of Kerr County's most baffling files. The conclusion of this phase was entered as the final line of the report: no progress in any investigative direction, existing data insufficient to determine victim or vehicle location, and the file officially closed as cold case per county protocol. In early 2021, amid a statewide Texas initiative to review long unsolved missing persons cases over 10 years old, the Texas Rangers were tasked with compiling and reassessing county-level cold case lists. The campaign aimed to apply new technical advances, especially in underwater detection, signal analysis, and land surveying, to revisit seemingly dead-end cases. In this list, Mary Ann Keller and her 2 children's disappearance was flagged as one of the hardest to explain due to the simultaneous vanishing of people and vehicle without any physical traces. During file review, Ranger Elena Navarro, an investigator experienced with long-term missing cases, paid particular attention to the Keller case. Navarro noted the case's absolute disappearance nature: no bodies, no vehicle, no clear scene setting it apart from most Hill Country missing cases. Another key factor prompting close review was the coincidence between Mary Ann's initial travel route and areas where 2021 modern detection technology could provide strong support, such as Medina Lake, dirt road systems into hilly regions, and large private properties like Harper Ranch. Navarro studied the entire original file, including witness interview transcripts, search reports, phone data, route analysis, and notes on 2011 detection equipment limitations. Comparing those technical constraints with Texas Rangers' current capabilities, she identified many points reprocessable with new methods. For example, 2021 sonar offered much higher resolution for broader and deeper lakebed scanning. Ground-penetrating radar (GPR) enabled subsurface soil surveys to inspect deep wells and unstable terrain inaccessible in 2011. And improved mobile signal analysis models allowed more accurate radius reconstruction than 2011 carrier rough coverage maps. After overall assessment, Navarro proposed reopening the Keller file. The proposal was approved because the case met 3 key Texas Rangers criteria for cold case re-examination: involvement of missing children, accompanying missing vehicle, and no physical evidence ever emerging since the incident. Navarro set clear working objectives before starting the new survey phase. The first objective was rechecking the entire initial search radius with 2021 technology, including advanced sonar sweeps of Medina Lake and related waters. The second was reassessing Harper Ranch, particularly points noted for deep wells, but uninspectable with prior equipment. The third was reconstructing Marianne's travel timeline using modern signal analysis tools to determine compatibility between 2011 cell tower pings and 2021 positioning models. The final objective was identifying any intersections between theoretical travel routes and geographic locations suitable for concealing a vehicle or bodies. With these objectives, Navarro officially marked the Keller file for comprehensive reinvestigation, laying the foundation for subsequent analysis and survey steps based on technology unavailable a decade earlier. As Texas entered the summer of 2021 with the most severe drought in over a decade, many reservoirs in the hill country dropped to unusually low levels, including Medina Lake, once one of the region's widest bodies of water and a site briefly searched in 2011 with no results. For Ranger Elena Navarro, this development created a rare opportunity. Low water levels exposed lakebed areas previously unreachable, while reducing noise from thick mud and submerged vegetation. Checking Texas Water Resources Agency data, Navarro saw Medina Lake levels were 35 to 40% below multi-year averages, revealing wide exposed bottom sections always underwater before. Recognizing ideal timing for next-generation sonar deployment, she immediately contacted the technical unit specializing in high-resolution sonar the Texas Rangers partnered with for modern searches. The deployed sonar was 2021 side-scan type, capable of producing far clearer lakebed images than 2011 equipment, with noise-filtering algorithms distinguishing metal objects from natural structures like rocks or submerged wood. After reviewing bathymetry maps, lakebed topography, Navarro and the technical team identified priority scan zones, areas near Marianne's possible travel route, deep anomalous depressions capable of trapping heavy objects, and submerged channels crossing the lake positions often considered trap points for vehicles entering water. Scanning proceeded in parallel strips spaced a few meters apart to ensure no hidden objects were missed in rough-bottom terrain. On the very first scan day, sonar showed marked resolution improvement. Submerged objects appeared sharply, with metal or man-made structures showing distinctive bright reflections. In the mid-lake area, where water had receded 45 meters deeper than 2011, equipment detected a return signal from an oddly shaped object. When sonar imagery reconstructed on screen, Navarro observed a strongly reflective object with straight edges corresponding to a small vehicle structure, sized approximately 4.5 meters long, matching specs of a 1970s compact car like the Ford Maverick. For confirmation, the technical team rescanned from different angles and layered data to rule out rock or natural debris noise. From every approach angle, the object retains similar shape: elongated body, squared roof section, and surface reflecting sonar waves consistent with metal. Reflection thickness also suggested not a single metal piece, but a hollow interior, fitting a car structure. Navarro ordered automated size modeling, yielding length near 4.6 meters and width about 1.7 meters, very close to the 1974 Ford Maverick's 4.57 meters long and 1.73 meters wide. These measurements drew Navarro's special attention, as the odds of random submerged debris matching the missing vehicle's dimensions were relatively low. For caution, she ordered further checks on object attributes, edge sharpness, metal reflectivity, low-angle sonar shadowing, and factors indicating relative intactness. All gathered data reinforced the hypothesis of a submerged vehicle rather than rock or wood. Another valuable factor was the object's location in a depression unreachable by 2011 old sonar due to high water and depth exceeding then-effective scan range. Its clear appearance under modern sonar proved prior technological limits left this area entirely outside analysis scope. Combining size, reflectivity, and geographic data, Navarro noted significant coincidence between the sonar-recorded object and Marianne Keller's Ford Maverick. Though not yet conclusive, all factors were strong enough to consider this the most significant find since 2011. On this basis, she added the discovery area to the priority list for direct verification, assessing the probability it was the missing vehicle as higher than any prior scenario. After the new generation sonar confirmed the presence of an object sized to match the Ford Maverick and located in a depression unreachable in 2011, Ranger Elena Navarro immediately reported to the Texas Rangers and requested deployment of a professional recovery team. With Medina Lake at record low water levels due to drought, accessing the object was far easier than a decade earlier, allowing the use of hydraulic cranes combined with divers to secure lifting straps without excessive deep diving risks. The recovery team set marker buoys, remeasured coordinates with GPS, and cordoned the area with boundary lines to prevent bottom sediment disturbance. When divers entered the water, they quickly confirmed the object was indeed a car lying tilted to one side, covered in thick mud, with light corrosion on the roof section. Anchor points were attached to the frame, and the lifting process proceeded slowly to preserve structural integrity for forensic examination. When the vehicle was pulled from the water and placed on a large nylon tarp on the lakeshore, Navarro closely inspected details to cross-reference with 2011 case file data. Though the body was mud-covered, the distinctive green color and white roof remained identifiable. More critically, after a preliminary rinse with clean water, the license plate clearly displayed characters matching the vehicle registered to Marianne Keller. This match confirmed the missing vehicle had lain on the bottom of Medina Lake for 10 years undetected. However, what heightened tension at the scene was the discovery inside the vehicle. When the doors were opened under forensic technicians' supervision, 2 child bodies were found in the rear seat. Though heavily decomposed due to prolonged submersion, their size and position strongly suggested they were Hallie and Lucas. They were found in postures showing no signs of defense or vigorous movement, indicating the event occurred suddenly with no time to react. Navarro immediately ordered a wider area cordoned off while documenting every scene element: vehicle position, tilt when found, water level at recovery, and interior condition before intervention. The entire process was video recorded to ensure legal integrity. One particularly striking detail was the absence of Marianne's body inside the vehicle. The front seats, driver and passenger, were empty, with no physical traces proving she had been in the car when it sank. The lack of an adult body led Navarro to conclude this was not a typical accident. If the vehicle had plunged into water due to loss of control, the driver would normally remain in the front seat unless they had exited beforehand or been subjected to external force. Navarro noted the relatively undamaged condition of the floor mats, dashboard, and driver's seat, observing no heavy internal impact marks suggesting struggling or attempts to open doors. Additionally, the right side window showed light cracking from the outside, but corrosion and mud overlay prevented determining whether the crack occurred before or after submersion. All details were logged into the scene report for forensic analysis. Forensic technicians continued collecting sediment samples, measuring corrosion levels, and documenting mud accumulation patterns to analyze the vehicle's sinking direction. These data would help determine whether the car entered the lake by natural force or external influence. The 2 children's bodies were handled per standard protocol, placed in specialized bags, tagged with identifiers, and transported to the State Forensic Lab for DNA confirmation and cause of death analysis. Navarro firmly maintained scene boundaries to prevent any external contamination affecting reconstruction. Upon completing initial documentation, the entire site was designated an open forensic examination zone, allowing specialized teams phased access. In the preliminary report, Navarro identified 3 key points. The vehicle had been recovered and fully matched Marianne's vehicle. 2 child bodies were found inside, but the mother's body was absent, and the scene must be absolutely preserved for subsequent forensic steps. The forensic examination process began immediately upon transfer of the 2 child bodies and the Ford Maverick to the Texas State Forensic Center. The examiner's first priority was precise identification of the 2 bodies through DNA analysis, as although size and discovery context made it nearly certain they were Hallie and Lucas, the legal nature of the case required no assumptions. Remaining bone and soft tissue samples were extracted under sterile conditions, then processed through modern DNA extraction protocols capable of recovering genetic sequences even after prolonged underwater decomposition. After several days of comparison, results showed both bodies' DNA sequences fully matched reference samples from Marianne's relatives. This officially confirmed Hallie and Lucas were in the vehicle when it sank into Medina Lake. With the children's identities established, the forensic team shifted focus to the vehicle where critical evidence for reconstructing events just before entry into the water might reside. The interior was cleaned via specialized protocol to remove thick mud while preserving examinable surfaces. When forensic technicians scanned the cabin with optical lights and chemical tests for biological traces, they detected numerous DNA samples from Hallie and Lucas, fully consistent with their presence in the vehicle. However, another finding immediately elevated the case priority. A male DNA sample appeared on the interior driver's side door surface and the overhead grab handle above the center console. These locations were not prone to random DNA transfer. They typically retained traces only from direct contact before submersion. The discovery instantly raised the question, who was the man who had been in the vehicle with Marianne and the two children? The sample was submitted to CODIS for matching. In most cold case files, DNA matches rarely yield quick results, but within a short time, the report returned, drawing Ranger Navarro's intense attention. The DNA matched the biometric record of Pastor Gerald Whitford, the local pastor previously considered a natural suspect, but cleared in 2011 due to a confirmed alibi. The match achieved near absolute statistical certainty, ruling out lab error or contamination. This was the first scientific evidence in the entire case placing a specific individual inside the missing vehicle, breaking the decade-long deadlock. Navarro reviewed the report multiple times for details and requested the forensic division check for cross-contamination or sampling errors, but examiners confirmed the result fully valid. The vehicle recovered sample matched Whitford's DNA in core STR sequences and supporting markers. Moreover, the DNA resided in high investigative value positions, interior door and console handle, where it could only appear if the man had sat in the vehicle or directly contacted the driving area under certain circumstances. This breakthrough became the first major advance since the 2011 disappearance. It not only returned Whitford to the center of the file but also raised major questions about the validity of his prior alibi. With irrefutable biological evidence, Navarro determined the case had shifted from undetermined disappearance to probable criminal involvement. The full forensic report was immediately entered into the active file, serving as basis for further investigation into connections between Pastor Whitford and Marianne Keller's vehicle. After forensic results confirmed Pastor Gerald Whitford's DNA inside the Ford Maverick's interior, Ranger Elena Navarro moved to the next step, reconstructing the complete travel timelines of both Marianne Keller and Whitford using 2021 signal analysis technology. The goal was to assess any geographic overlap between the two during the period the vehicle vanished, something 2011 technology could not achieve. Navarro requested the digital unit retrieve archive cell tower data for both Marianne and Whitford on September 18, 2011. Though 2011 archive data lacked precise GPS coordinates, it contained tower identification codes and connection timestamps, sufficient for correlative positioning models with modern algorithms. The technical team applied signal triangulation based on signal strength, and 2021 updated cell tower coverage maps, significantly reducing margin of error compared to classical methods. Reconstructing Marianne's timeline showed her phone connected only to towers on Kerrville's northern edge that afternoon, consistent with old data and creating no contradictions. However, applying the same model to Whitford's data revealed an anomaly. The pastor's phone connected to a tower near Harper Ranch during the estimated time the vehicle likely left the main road. This was a tower 2011 files could not exploit due to accuracy limits, but 2021 models showed its actual coverage area much smaller than decade-old maps. This meant Whitford's phone was not merely in a broad Kerrville vicinity, but very likely within the land leading to Harper Ranch. For verification, Navarro ran reverse timeline modeling, analyzing movement direction by tracking each tower handoff that evening. Results were consistent. The phone moved from southern Kerrville toward Harper Ranch, paused there briefly, then switched to an eastern tower, consistent with a looping route that could have taken Marianne's vehicle off visible paths before complete disappearance. Navarro ordered noise exclusion algorithms to test random coincidence, whether Whitford's phone merely passed the Harper Ranch tower unrelated to Marianne's vehicle. The technical division ran statistical models based on population density, traffic volume, and likelihood of passage at that time. The coincidence probability was only 0.8%, under 1% chance of occurring without relevance. This nearly eliminated random coincidence conclusions. Navarro then compared Whitford's mobile data with his 2011 alibi report, where he claimed to be at the church the entire evening. But the new positioning timeline proved his phone left the church area and connected near Harper Ranch precisely during the window. Marianne's vehicle likely diverted from Highway 16. Any discrepancy between statement and signal data was suspicious, but Whitford's device appearing in the key segment of the journey further reinforced direct involvement in Marianne and her children's disappearance. Upon completing signal analysis, Navarro entered into the report that 2021 positioning results created a major shift in case assessment, clear overlap between Whitford's movements and Marianne's reconstructed vehicle route, with random coincidence virtually ruled out. This was the next breakthrough, linking vehicle DNA evidence to actual field movements unprovable a decade earlier. After 2021 positioning data confirmed Pastor Gerald Whitford's phone appeared near Harper Ranch exactly when Marianne's vehicle likely turned off Highway 16, Ranger Elena Navarro refocused attention on the vast property where 2011 search teams lacked equipment for deep survey. With Texas Rangers' support, Navarro deployed a technical team equipped with next-generation ground-penetrating radar, capable of scanning meters below ground and imaging disturbed, void, or anomalous soil layers. The first priority zone was around the old oil wells positions 2011 teams, noted as high-risk but uninspectable due to depth and deteriorated well mouth. When GPR scanned along Harper Ranch's northern perimeter, the device returned anomalous signals. A roughly 5-square-meter area showed abnormally compacted soil with reflection patterns characteristic of dug-then-refilled ground. This was a signal modern GPR clearly distinguished, as natural soil layers are uniform while disturbed soil produces phase-shifted bands and discontinuous boundaries. Navarro ordered multiple scans at different frequencies to rule out subsurface rock or large root noise. After 3 scans, the GPR map clearly showed half-meter-thick surface soil, beneath which appeared a compressed void forming a long, narrow depression typical of non-natural dud pits. Estimated depth 1.8 to 2 meters. Consistent with burial pits Navarro had encountered in hill country crimes. The pit's edges were straight, not naturally curved, further supporting tool-do intervention. The anomaly's location was notable, about 30 meters from an abandoned oil well, close enough for concealment using terrain to block views from main ranch entrances, yet far enough to avoid well collapse. Navarro immediately requested deeper layer 3D modeling to determine if solid structures, large objects, or organic accumulation signs existed below. Data revealed point reflections of small size in the compressed zone, typical GPR signals for long decomposed organic material or clothing. Though not immediately identifiable, this matched patterns seen in deliberate burial sites containing organic or fabric items. To rule out compaction from mechanical activity or heavy vehicle movement, Navarro compared the position with Harper Ranch land use maps from 1990 to 2011. The anomaly area had never been a driveway, equipment placement site, or mining zone. Kerr County old reports indicated long-term abandonment before the disappearance, making legal activity compaction nearly impossible. With all GPR data aligning abnormal depth, artificial compaction structure, strategic location near old oil well, and point reflection suggesting organic material, Navarro determined this position must be treated as a site potentially directly related to the Keller case. She immediately requested full lockdown of northern Harper Ranch within a radius exceeding 100 meters to prevent stratigraphic disturbance. Texas Rangers swiftly erected barriers, assigned guards, and marked access with police tape. Navarro entered into the report that excavation must proceed cautiously with forensic archaeology, and evidence teams to preserve subsurface traces. Once the area was fully secured, she prepared for the excavation phase, based on the assumption GPR findings might contain the case's most critical answers. When GPR data at Harper Ranch showed clear signs of an anomalous burial pit near the 2021 positioning confirmed location of Pastor Gerald Whitford's phone, Ranger Elena Navarro recognized the moment to shift the file from analysis to legal action had arrived. She compiled all collected evidence into a clear chain of evidence report. Whitford's DNA on the driver's interior door and center console grab handle of the Ford Maverick recovered from Medina Lake Bottom. 2021 reconstructed cell tower data placing his phone near Harper Ranch during the window. Marianne's vehicle route diverted from Highway 16. Whitford's 2011 alibi incompatible with new positioning data, proving he was not at the church during critical hours, and GPR confirming a compacted soil area fully matching deliberate burial indicators. Navarro presented this file to the Texas State Prosecutor's Office, requesting an arrest warrant on grounds of probable cause to believe Pastor Gerald Whitford was directly involved in the disappearance and possible death of Marianne Keller. The prosecutor reviewed each element and concluded the evidence chain, though incomplete, exceeded preliminary proof thresholds under state law. An emergency motion was filed with the Kerr County District Judge requesting approval of an arrest warrant citing Whitford as primary suspect in a probable homicide and body concealment case. The judge, after reading the full file, signed the warrant the same day due to risks of evidence destruction, flight, or public safety threats. Navarro coordinated with Texas Rangers to plan Whitford's arrest at his residence the following morning. A rapid response team approached, blocked exits with 2 patrol vehicles, and advanced to the front door per protocol for serious felony suspects. When they knocked and read the warrant, Whitford appeared surprised and attempted calm composure. But Navarro observed a subtle eye shift when GPR and DNA were mentioned, indicating he understood the situation. After handcuffing per procedure, investigators conducted initial search within warrant scope, seizing his current mobile phone, laptop, external hard drive, and personal documents including pastoral notebooks and 2011 church activity schedules. All evidence was sealed and transferred to Texas Rangers Digital Analysis Center. Navarro paid particular attention to Whitford's current phone, as modern devices often retain layered background data including login history, location, or cloud backups that could reveal recent behavior. While being placed in the patrol vehicle, Whitford requested to speak with an attorney, fully consistent with his legal rights. But Navarro continued explaining procedure. He was under judicial warrant arrest and would be interrogated per serious crime protocol, specifically first-degree murder, if excavation confirmed a body. Upon arrival at the Texas Rangers interrogation room in San Antonio, he was placed in a fully camera-monitored room with an agent present to ensure procedural compliance. Navarro served as lead interrogator, preparing the interrogation file with all collected data but withholding public disclosure. At this point, Whitford was unaware excavation teams at Harper Ranch were preparing deployment, but his arrest before excavation was deliberate. Navarro aimed to prevent scene alteration or alerts to potential accomplices. When interrogation began, Whitford continued denying involvement in the disappearance, but Navarro immediately presented a series of questions cross-referencing his 2011 alibi with new positioning data. Emerging inconsistencies in his responses were carefully recorded for use in subsequent steps. With Whitford formally arrested and all digital evidence seized, the Keller case moved from cold case status to active prosecution of a suspect, paving the way for continued excavation and truth clarification. In the interrogation room, Ranger Elena Navarro began not with questions but by laying out each piece of evidence before Pastor Gerald Whitford: photos of the recovered Ford Maverick, DNA results confirming his presence in the vehicle, 2021 reconstructed cell tower positioning maps, and GPR images showing compacted soil at Harper Ranch. She explained clearly these were physical evidence, not speculation. When informed his DNA was on the driver's interior door and center console grab handle positions incapable of retaining traces for 10 years unless deposited immediately before submersion, Whitford tried to remain calm, stating he once helped Marianne fix the car door in the church parking lot. Navarro immediately refuted. The vehicle was submerged for 10 years. DNA does not persist if left before that time. It was deposited right before the car sank. For the first time, Whitford lost composure. Navarro moved to the next evidence positioning timeline. Reconstructed maps showed Whitford's phone connecting to a tower near Harper Ranch precisely during the period Marianne's vehicle was determined to have left Highway 16. Whitford hedged that phones sometimes jump towers, but Navarro pointed out that tower had extremely narrow coverage in an almost unpopulated area. The chance you passed there coincidentally is under 1%, she said. Your phone was at Harper Ranch, and that was when the vehicle disappeared. When Whitford began defending with phone presence proves nothing, Navarro pivoted to the 2011 alibi. She reopened the old statement transcript, reminding him he had claimed to be at the church the entire evening. If so, she asked, why was your phone not at the church? Why did it leave the area and connect to the tower near Harper Ranch? Whitford had no answer. Navarro pressed further. The 2 witnesses confirming his alibi 10 years earlier could not recall exact timestamps, and no one saw him continuously as claimed. You lied, she said, and we have evidence proving it. When Whitford fell silent, Navarro presented the heaviest evidence: your DNA in the vehicle. Your phone at Harper Ranch, and a compacted soil area showing signs of deliberate burial. At the final phrase, Whitford reacted immediately. His eyes widened, revealing genuine emotion for the first time. Navarro recognized the moment and increased pressure. "You know what we found. You know what we are excavating." Whitford began sweating, his voice trembling. He tried repeating, "It's not what you think," but could no longer maintain initial confidence. Navarro continued, "The truth will come out. If you keep concealing, courtroom consequences will be far more severe. But if you cooperate, we will note it." Whitford looked down at the table, avoiding Navarro's gaze, hands clenched in a manner experienced investigators recognized. Psychological collapse had begun when Navarro restated one final time, "You were at Harper Ranch. You were in the vehicle. And your DNA did not appear there by itself." Whitford no longer denied. He only whispered an incomplete sentence. I didn't think it would turn out like this." That was clear indication his defenses had crumbled, and for the first time since 2011, the truth was about to emerge. The psychological collapse was clearly evident in Pastor Gerald Whitford's facial expression and every movement, and Ranger Elena Navarro understood that the moment to push him to admit the truth had arrived. When she stopped speaking and deliberately remained silent, Whitford began to tremble slightly, his eyes avoiding direct contact, continuously clenching his fingers. Finally, he quietly uttered the sentence that made the entire atmosphere in the room seem to freeze. I know where Marianne is." Navarro did not rush to press him, only asked him to explain more clearly. After a few seconds of hesitation, Whitford admitted she wasn't in the car. "I hid her in an abandoned oil well at Harper Ranch." From there, Navarro asked him to describe in detail to the point of being irrefutable. Whitford began speaking in a low but surprisingly precise voice. "The oil well was located at the northeast edge of the ranch, about 20 to 30 meters from the old barbed wire fence, concealed by a dense cluster of mesquite trees and a large flat rock that appeared to be a natural part of the terrain." He said that to reach the well, one had to follow a narrow dirt path running parallel to an old metal pipeline that had been half buried in the ground, a structure that did not appear on any land use maps after 1998. Then, when Navarro asked about the well's mouth, he described the circular steel plate covering it, which was heavily corroded in several places. He had to use a crowbar to pry it up and place a thick wooden plank to create a foothold before pulling Marianne's body to the edge of the well. These details could not be guessed from the case file. They could only come from someone who had stood directly at the scene. Navarro asked him to describe the process of concealing the body after pushing it down the well. Whitford admitted that he dropped 2 small concrete blocks, the kind used in the church down the well, to ensure the body sank deep. He also said he had placed a layer of rusted iron mesh over the well's mouth before pulling the steel plate back into position, then secured it with wire tied to 2 old bolts. He even clearly remembered that one bolt was broken, so he had to stuff rocks into the gap to keep the plate from shifting. This was the kind of detail that could not be fabricated unless someone had personally handled that old structure. When asked about the access route, Whitford described that he had not used the main entrance to Harper Ranch for fear of being seen. Instead, he approached from the north, following the fence line, where a rotted fence post created a gap just wide enough to drag the body through. In late 2011, the search team had noted that rotted post but considered it only natural damage. Now his statement gave that detail an entirely different meaning. Navarro continued to ask him to describe how he erased the traces. Whitford stated that he used dry grass from the ranch's old barn to cover the drag marks and footprints, knowing the grass would decompose after one rainy season. He also said he used a mesquite branch to sweep the ground surface, and he recalled accidentally breaking a small branch while backing out, matching the position that the search team had assessed as naturally broken in 2011. When asked why he chose the oil well, Whitford replied, "No one would look that deep. I thought that place would keep everything forever." Those words, combined with a meticulous description of the oil well, the access route, the covering materials, and the identifying signs, showed Navarro that this was not a coerced or guessed confession. It contained all the elements only the perpetrator could possess. He even described the direction he faced when pushing the body down, saying he had to turn his body to the left because there was a protruding metal rod right next to the well's mouth on the right side, a detail that even old cadastral records did not mention, but could be fully verified upon physical approach to the site. When the confession ended, Whitford bent forward, his voice hoarse and trembling. "I didn't think anyone would find it. I didn't think the lake would dry up that much." With details that only someone who had directly carried out the act could describe, Whitford's confession became the key evidence confirming the location of Marianne's body and opening the possibility of solving the case after 10 years of mystery. Immediately after Pastor Gerald Whitford accurately confessed the location where he had hidden Marianne Keller's body in the abandoned oil well at Harper Ranch, Ranger Elena Navarro promptly proceeded to the next step of forensic protocol: field verification and excavation according to expanded cold case standards. The Texas Rangers forensic team, along with a geotechnical technician, was dispatched to the ranch from early morning, bringing equipment to lift the well cover, toxic gas detectors, a deep probe camera, and a sample collection kit. Navarro led the team to the exact position Whitford had described, the northeast edge of the property, where the dense mesquite cluster formed a natural screen and the large flat rock concealed the long-forgotten well mouth. When comparing the confession to the terrain, every element matched perfectly. The narrow dirt path running alongside the half-buried old metal pipeline, the rotted fence post creating the gap exactly as Whitford described, and 30 meters from the fence leading to the circular steel plate covered in soil, moss, and layers of decay. The forensic team began by clearing the surface around the well mouth. When the dust and soil were blown away, the steel plate appeared exactly as Whitford had described. 2 rusted bolts holding the edges, 1 bolt broken in half, and rocks stuffed in to keep the plate fixed. Just looking at that structure, Navarro knew the confession could not be fabricated. The technicians used lifting equipment to raise the steel plate. Beneath it was the pitch-black void of the old oil well, of undetermined depth and filled with toxic gas. The probe camera was lowered first, illuminating eroded soil and rock layers, some old metal fragments, and small, reflective points of unknown origin until the light swept across a human-shaped structure lying tilted to one side. That was the moment the entire team fell silent. The form of an adult human skeleton appeared in the lens, resting on a thick layer of sediment, with fabric remnants still clinging to the upper torso. Navarro ordered all movement stopped to fully document the scene before proceeding with excavation. A technician was lowered by safety line after the atmosphere was measured to reach the minimum safe level. This person first collected fabric fragments, light blue cotton fabric with a small pattern, matching the description of the clothing Marianne was wearing on the day she disappeared. Next, they collected samples from the jawbone, wrist bones, and a small piece of decayed leather belt. The sampling process was carried out extremely slowly to avoid disrupting the decomposed skeletal structure after many years. When the skeleton was brought up from the well in a forensic body bag, Navarro observed a crucial detail. The body was not bound, with no remaining traces of restraints, but the posture indicated the person had been pushed down while immobile, consistent with the hypothesis of death prior to disposal. The fabric fragments and evidence were sealed, coated, and immediately transferred to the Texas State Forensic Laboratory. The rest of the team continued scanning the well bottom to ensure no evidence was overlooked, and they found the 2 small concrete blocks exactly as Whitford had described, located about half a meter below the skeleton. Their presence was strong evidence confirming his account of the disposal process. When the evidence reached the lab, DNA specialists extracted samples from the femur and teeth, the 2 parts most likely to preserve genetic material best in a moist soil environment. Although the skeleton had heavily decomposed after 10 years, modern PCR techniques were still capable of amplifying the necessary DNA for comparison with Marianne's family reference samples. After 3 days of analysis, the report was sent directly to Navarro. The DNA sequence matched completely with the reference sample, confirming the remains were those of Marianne Keller. This was the final verification the case needed to establish legal binding. The body was found exactly where the suspect had stated. DNA confirmed identity, and supporting physical evidence, concrete blocks, fabric fragments, well structure, all matched Whitford's description down to the smallest detail. When the forensic lab completed the comprehensive report, they concluded that the remains showed no signs of accidental fall into the well. Instead, the posture and context indicated intentional disposal after the victim was already deceased. This report became the core component to lock the criminal file, strengthening the direct link between the confession, the crime scene, and biological evidence. With DNA confirming identity and the excavation process proving every detail Whitford provided was accurate to a degree that could not be coincidental, the case moved to the ready-for-prosecution stage, closing 10 years of mystery surrounding Marianne Keller's resting place. The trial of Pastor Gerald Whitford took place in the spring of 2022 at Kerr County Court, drawing significant attention because the case had dragged on for over 10 years and was now solved thanks to new technology. As soon as the session opened, the Texas State Prosecution presented the entire physical evidence in a tightly logical sequence. The Ford Maverick retrieved from Medina Lake, in which the bodies of 2 children were found. The remains of Marianne Keller excavated from the abandoned oil well, and DNA results that matched absolutely with reference samples from the family. Images of the oil well, crime scene, the rusted steel plate, broken bolt, iron mesh, and 2 concrete blocks were displayed on the screen, showing every detail precisely as Whitford had described during his confession. The prosecutor then moved to evidence from inside the vehicle. Whitford's DNA located on the inside of the driver's door and the dashboard handle, places where biological traces could not persist for many years if left earlier, especially when the vehicle had been submerged for a decade. This forced the jury to confront the reality that Whitford had been inside the vehicle right before it was driven into the lake. Following DNA, the prosecution presented reconstructed cell tower location data. On the interactive map, Whitford's phone journey was clearly shown, leaving the church area, moving north toward Kerrville, connecting to a tower near Harper Ranch exactly during the time frame when the Maverick disappeared, then returning to the residential area. The prosecutor emphasized that the probability of random connection to this tower with its extremely narrow coverage area was less than 1%, thereby completely refuting the alibi he had given in 2011 that he was at the church all evening. After fully presenting each segment, the prosecution introduced a crime journey reconstruction model. The vehicle was driven off Highway 16. Whitford appeared in the overlapping time frame. Marianne's body was disposed of in the oil well. The 2 children were left in the vehicle before it was pushed into the lake. The 3D model did not interpret for the jury, but coherently connected all verified facts. Next, the prosecution presented the central legal argument. Whitford's actions did not bear the characteristics of an accident or impulsive act. They were a deliberate sequence of actions, evidenced by traveling to Harper Ranch, disposing of the body in a deep oil well, using covering materials, then driving the vehicle to Medina Lake to erase traces. More importantly, there was no fact supporting the possibility that Whitford was in the vehicle or at Harper Ranch for any innocent reason. The defense attempted to argue that Whitford's confession was made under psychological pressure, but the prosecution played the interrogation recording showing he confessed entirely voluntarily, without threats, and the confession matched the physical scene completely, something impossible unless he had directly committed the acts. The defense also argued that DNA only confirms presence, but the prosecution immediately countered that the very location of the DNA, the timing of the vehicle's submersion, the location data, and the holes in the alibi formed an inseparable chain of evidence. At the end of closing arguments, the prosecution concluded that no sequence of innocent events could explain it. The defendant's DNA in the vehicle, his phone at Harper Ranch, the body disposed of exactly where he confessed, and the 2 children dead in the submerged vehicle, all pointed to a single conclusion: deliberate, calculated criminal conduct with intent to conceal over a prolonged period. The jury retired to deliberate. After nearly 3 hours, they returned, and the 4-person stood to read the clear and decisive verdict. The defendant, Gerald Whitford, guilty. The courtroom fell silent before the judge confirmed the verdict and moved the case to the sentencing phase. After the jury's guilty verdict, Kerr County Court proceeded to the sentencing phase, in which the Texas State Prosecution requested the maximum penalty under the law, death, based on 3 clearly aggravating factors: the number of victims, deliberate concealment, and the prolonged duration of the disposal. The judge reviewed the entire file, including the confession, DNA evidence, location data, oil well crime scene, and forensic reports, then pronounced the final sentence. Pastor Gerald Whitford was sentenced to death under Texas law for first-degree murder with special aggravating circumstances. When the sentence was read, the courtroom sank into silence. A disappearance that had lasted over 10 years ended with an irreversible legal affirmation. After the trial, Ranger Elena Navarro completed the comprehensive summary report of the entire reinvestigation process, a summary considered exemplary in applying modern technology to cold case files. She clearly analyzed the steps that had been correctly implemented in the 2011 phase, such as collecting statements, initially mapping routes, and searching adjacent areas, but also pointed out objective limitations. Old sonar technology could not scan deep into Medina Lake. GPR was not yet widespread enough to check oil wells, and cell tower data at that time lacked sufficient resolution to pinpoint narrow area movements. Navarro emphasized that the errors in 2011 were not due to poor investigative capability, but to tool limitations. Without next-generation sonar, updated location algorithms, and penetrating GPR, the Keller case could have remained buried in cold case files forever. She also analyzed the critical role of linking evidence, what shifted the case from unexplained disappearance to deliberate crime. The combination of DNA in the vehicle, Whitford's matching phone location, contradictory statements, and the oil well position identified by GPR created an irrefutable chain of proof. Navarro noted that if even one of these elements had been missing, the entire prosecution process could have been called into question. An important part of the summary was the assessment of the case's unique nature. This was not just a murder, it was a prolonged disappearance in which the perpetrator relied on natural terrain, technological limitations, and scattered clues to create a complete vanishing scenario. For over a decade, the vehicle lay at the bottom of Medina Lake. Mary Ann's body was hidden deep in the oil well, and no easily recognizable trace existed on the surface. This demonstrated the perpetrator's level of calculation and also the challenges law enforcement faced when technology had not yet caught up to the complexity of criminal behavior. Navarro remarked that advances in investigative science not only solved the Keller case but also opened the door for hundreds of other cold case files. Technologies such as high-resolution sonar, stratigraphic GPR, mobile signal modeling, and modern DNA analysis are becoming the new standard, enabling the reopening of disappearances once considered unsolvable. Her report was submitted to the Texas Rangers as a model example showing the importance of combining new tools with re-evaluation of old data. On the day the Keller file was permanently closed, Navarro wrote the final line in the log: "File completed, victim located, perpetrator tried." From a traceless disappearance, the truth has been reconstructed step by step through science and perseverance. With the sentence pronounced and all evidence confirmed, the Keller case officially closed after more than 10 years of mystery, a testament to the power of modern technology and the steadfastness of the Texas investigative forces. Thank you for following to the end of the journey solving one of Texas's most mysterious disappearances. If you found the content useful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue joining us. See you in the next video, where we continue exploring cold cases reopened thanks to science and the persistence of those who seek the truth.